All righty, so we're rocking and rolling right now. I want to welcome everyone out. This is Prophecy Matters UK, and I'm here with the illustrious Pastor Courtney Lowe, and he's kindly agreed to come on my channel, and we're going to discuss a few things. Hopefully, this will be the first of many,
Yes,
and
sir.
and we're gonna just really start with today. Hopefully, less than half an hour. Want to look at First Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 to 5. And I want to just really quickly read it. It says, "But know this, that in the last days perilous times will come, for men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, despisers of good, traitors, headstrong, haughty, lovers of pleasures rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power, and from such people turn away." So I got a few questions I want to discuss. I only got 2 slides. Um, and so the first thing I wanted to say, man, that Paul wrote this nearly 2,000 years ago. And so the question is, do you think Paul is talking about today? And didn't people throughout history do all these things? It isn't just, if it is today, it isn't just us that have been lovers of selves and money and whatnot. History is filled of people who love money and unthankful and whatnot. What makes that different from now? What do you think?
I think my opinion of it would be that I think we are definitely going in that direction. And the reason why I say that is because we kind of saw after Christianity that things kind of water kind of raised, where we see there's certain things that bit by bit things started to get better. People's certain morals, certain things that we would say Christian morals,
Yeah,
Christian perspective
yeah,
started to come into the world. We would say, really and truly, the West, for good or for bad, has influenced the
yes,
world
yes.
mainly. And I
Mm,
read somewhere that before it was called Europe, it's like Christendom or something like
yeah,
that, you know.
yeah,
And so we are seeing a decline in that. We are seeing, I think, what do you call it? Post
yeah,
Christian. We are seeing that, and if the West goes that way, then I find it very hard to see how the rest of the world is going to have, unless it has some sort of miracle revival, which it could.
yeah, yeah,
I struggle to see how the rest of the world is going to pull up the West when the West is the financial system, when the West is
yeah,
the every political system in the world that works is copied from the West. Every other political system, every other moral system, everything else has not really worked that well. So that's why I would say, yeah, I think we are living in those times based upon, yeah, if you go back before Christ and, even during Christ's time, the world was a brutal place. But
yeah,
then we elevated out of that. But
yeah,
you were starting to shift and see certain things going on. And I think the key thing, though, is the breakdown of the family structure
yes,
and the
yes,
breakdown of what a man is and what a
yeah,
woman is and
yeah,
what kids should be.
yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. We tend to exalt technology and knowledge, that somehow that makes us better people, but us being better people has to transcend that. And we think about Nazi Germany; they were technologically advanced and whatnot, and yet they did some of the most brutal things in human history. And so I'm thinking in the West, we're giving up our Christian heritage for better systems, and we're seeing the so-called better systems make us regress. We're not we're not the people that our ancestors were in that sense. Morally speaking, man, and we're seeing this breaking down more and more. That people are doing things now that they wouldn't even do 30 years ago. 40 years ago. People are
Mm,
doing things more than ever before. And I was looking up the word perilous times, and it's very interesting. It literally is. Anyone has a New King James Bible with margins, it says times of stress. Then the last days, times of stress will come. And I'm thinking about the idea that the stress, and looking from the list, we're looking at verses 2 to 5. The stress isn't climate change or the threat of nuclear war or Russian invasion. The stress is internal, what I'm saying, rather than an external threat. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I had one here where it's like difficult, grievous,
Yeah,
um uh challenging. It's how we will feel about these times. These times are going to
yes,
be for you internally.
yeah, yeah,
They're going to be, it's going to be different. Well, if you think about it now, there was once, and obviously, if if you don't know any history, or you're just living now, living life, you take every day as it comes. But you got to realize there was an age where people believed we were on the rise, we were going to get better.
yeah,
There was
yeah,
a season where technology and industrial revolution and all these things, where
yeah.
people started to think by now we would be in a utopia. By now
Yes,
we would have been in like some sort of like murder. What's murder? What's rape?
yeah,
We would have
yeah,
outdone all of that by our
yeah,
human ingenuity and morality from a human perspective. But as we look at it now, people are more likely to feel like depressed over
yeah,
the future. um, Within 100 years, we've had two world wars, which were the
yeah,
worst wars.
yeah,
You think as men have been on the planet for thousands of years, we've in just under 100 years, or it would be over 100 years, 1914, but we've had the two worst wars.
yeah,
And even where how many wars are going on in the world today, how come we're not progressing out of this?
yeah,
If it was
yeah,
just an evolution thing, come on, man. If a
yes,
single cell organism can create an eyeball, not knowing that there's light even out there, how come we all know that
yeah,
war
yeah,
is wrong, stealing is
yeah,
wrong, we
yeah,
can't. So this is you know it's very powerful that Paul would be able to say, obviously by the Spirit of God, that things are going to get worse. They're not going to get
yeah,
better. They're gonna,
yeah,
they're gonna kind of go up. It's almost like a paper plane. You throw it, it goes up, but then it's gonna come down. It's going,
yeah.
it cannot keep itself up because we've left God out.
And yeah, you're going back. It's good that you said that about the two world wars. I was reading stuff about the late 1800s, how people thought that the next century, the 20th century, would be exactly what you said, a utopia, a new age of peace, and we get eliminating all this stuff, man. And yet, World War One and World War Two put pay to that. It's also interesting that 2001 is the first year of the 21st century, and we had 9/11. You know what I'm saying? And the ramifications of it. Osama bin Laden did far more than just destroy a few buildings and a few thousand people. He kind of set in motion certain things that we've seen playing out in regards to the end times. But yeah, even 2020s, you remember people saying 2020 vision, at the start of 2020 or just before 2020 vision, man. And this decade has been the worst decade in I reckon from post-war post World War II, we find ourselves really going down. And I wanted to look at I got a slide here, the next slide, and it's just a breakdown of 2 Timothy 3:1 to 4. And we just got to just quickly look over these different groupings. Paul didn't just put these verses haphazardly and just threw them in. They had a direction. You know what I'm saying? And the first direction really is misapplied love, lovers of themselves and lovers of money. And if we know people have always loved themselves and always loved money, why do you think that this generation is like we have it on steroids, man? You know what I mean? PEDs, steroids, you name it, man. We've injected all of that, and we've made this thing into this huge hulk. What do you think that is?
I think lovers of self is well, we see it from marriages as well. I think that's a big thing,
Yeah,
isn't it? Marriages are
very
breaking
good,
down.
very good.
Marriages
Yeah.
have been, even when people were poorer and
Yes.
more of a subsistence living and working on
Yeah.
farms, they had
Yeah.
less technology. People would stay together for their whole life. You know,
Yes.
marriage is a big breakdown of this. I think um, we see that just in normal. You know, there was a time when people, if you was ignorant and poor and you never had knew nothing, then they were, you know, it was like, yeah, you're going to be raggedy.
Yeah.
But this is not that anymore. This is the prevailing culture of
Yeah.
whoever. This is across
Yeah.
the board. Um, uh, Lovers of themselves. They're unable to love others. You know,
Yeah.
you're unable to actually have empathy for
Yeah.
others.
Yeah.
Unable to do that. And you think there's a whole industry for it. There's a whole, you know, way of looking at life and how people are consumed. You see this with even in parenting, that people, you know, the normal love that people would have for their children. You see
Yeah.
that it's lacking. People going out and partying, and I remember reading these. There's so many of these stories. You know,
Yes. Very
people
true.
just go out and leave their children, and somebody wants to go out and party, or um, getting into a relationship. I think you told me when you was in Jamaica, you know, I don't know if it was multiple, but one where the guy, he lives with his mom brings him up, and then the mom gets a boyfriend and kicks him out. Says, "No, no, no, you
Yeah.
got him.
Yeah.
I've got
Yeah.
to have a man. It's more
Yeah.
important I have a man than look after my child."
Yeah. Yeah. Or girls, when they reach, the mom says, "All right, you're 16 now. It's time to go and find a man." You know,
Yeah,
and you get booted out, and she herself had to do that at 16. You know.
yeah. So you see this whole
Yeah.
thing of but it's almost it's not even seen as a bad thing. It's
Yeah.
seen self-love. It's almost like we um and here's the contradiction with the world. The world will celebrate certain things, meaning like self-love,
Yeah.
but then it tries to condemn selfishness when it manifests itself and destroys something. And
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
constantly does this. It
Yeah.
constantly contradicts itself. It will be
Yeah.
like your truth and your way. But
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
when things fail, it's like, oh, this was terrible. You think about it now, we went through that whole Me Too thing, which
Yeah.
I'm with, man. Men should not be touching women. But
Yeah.
think about it now. The church was the one that was saying, listen, I'm never alone with a woman. I don't
Yeah.
touch women.
Yeah. Yeah.
I respect women. The
Yeah.
church
Yeah.
was doing that back in the day, man. This has been, you know, in the Bible. It's do not touch a woman.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
there 2,000 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
What's his name? Job. I've made a covenant with my eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Come
Yeah.
on, it was there. But then you
Yeah.
mocked us and you said,
Yeah.
you don't know nothing. You mocked us. You've gone through all the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and then we get to the 2000s and we realize, you know what? We've been subjecting women to this, but the church said it. You
Yeah.
contradict, the world contradicts itself all the
Yeah.
time.
Well, yeah, that's true. You know, I preached a sermon last week, Sunday, called feed the problem, feed the solution, not the problem. You know, the world hasn't got a problem diagnosing the issues, but a lot of times it feeds a problem. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's like we talk about not over sexualizing kids. I was with my son Lucas at a hotel. We're having breakfast, and I saw this as I'm getting my food, going back to my chair. I saw this young girl, 10 years old, and you know how them girls dress in the gym. Them really, I mean, them outrageous stuff, man. It's like, why are you wearing this? You know what I'm saying? And I saw this, and I had to take a double take. I couldn't believe it was a 10-year-old girl. And I looked, I thought it was like a little diminutive woman. But I looked, it was about 9, 10-year-old girl, and she went back to her mom's table. And I'm looking at the mom. I'm thinking, Mom, you facilitate this, and on top of that, the fashion company has to be making these kind of clothes as well for these kids. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so you're over sexualizing these kids, and you say you have a problem with it. You know what I'm saying? And so you're right about that. Going back to what you said earlier on about subsistence farming, and my granddad, that's what he did. He was married to his wife. His dad before that was a subsistence farmer. You know, and his all that, and it's like, you know, back in those times, I think because people needed each other more, marriages tend to last. While nowadays, we have so much disposable income that even relationships are disposable. You know what I'm saying? That we're the economy that we have facilitates self-love. You know what I'm saying? And being lovers of self. And on top of that, I would think as well the rise of social media. Everybody has a listen, we're doing our own channels and all that kind of stuff, but we're trying to put content out there. We're not trying to pose with selfies and showing butts and lips and all that kind of stupid stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you think that so we see that again. It's not at one point. Things that would be said like stop showing off. That wouldn't be said anymore.
Very true.
Stop feeling sorry for yourself. That wouldn't be said anymore. These things are things that I constantly heard growing up. Don't show off. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Don't be you don't hear those things anymore. People can go down that rabbit hole of basically self, and it's not frowned upon. It's accepted.
But you think about how people putting this online. I have a problem with my husband. I'm going online. Oh, my husband don't treat me well. Are you letting everybody know what your marriage problems is? And people are commenting and coming after your own husband. I saw a woman who did this, and then she had to say, listen, we're working through things. Please don't email my husband's workplace to try and get him fired, all that stuff. It's like, are you crazy? It is self-love.
Yeah, lovers of lovers of money. That one is just, we see that. That's evident.
Greed is good. Greed is good. Yeah.
Gordon Gecko.
Let's that's right. Let's move on, man. So from misapplied love, we see the idea of selfish speech, boasters, proud, blasphemers. And again, this is so going back to what you've said, there is a time where boasting, you would be, you do that, man, there'd be frowns, you know what I'm saying, from a societal point of view, your friends and whatnot, man, being proud, even being blasphemers, man, you there's certain things you would not say, even if you weren't a believer, so to speak, or you weren't in church anymore, there's certain words you would not use. You know what I'm saying? What do you think about the times that we're living in regards to this?
Well, I think if you think of just culture and music and thinking highly of yourself or boasting, that describes music today, man. That's the culture today, to tell you how good you are, to tell you what you've got. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, that was everything. All my music was like, this is who I am. Look at who I am. This is what I've got. This is what I've done. No one's bigger than me. No one's better than me. No one can do what I do. And so once something becomes its music, it's your culture. I remember someone speaking about culture is defined by when we say culture and how we live, the word culture is used in everything nowadays. But when we would say what is a culture, meaning people's food, people's clothes, people's music, people's language, people's mannerisms, you think about this, just the proud, like how people have to wear clothes that have the name on the outside to show you how much it was worth. Just to really, that is it. It's not like it's saying something else. It's one thing to have a t-shirt that says Batman, or there's a t-shirt that says, I vote for whoever. But this is simply to say my wealth. This is simply to say this is what I can afford. And so that's pride. Yeah, pride is the preeminence. It's the stick out. And that's what it's about. And so we see this constantly. There's a whole industry for it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Proud, and I'm thinking of Pride. Our good old Pride movement, blasphemers. We're seeing again in the music industry, man. People, you know, doing the most outrageous things, saying the most outrageous things, and doing it because they know it's going to stoke controversy and it's going to sell records. You know,
What this guy? There's a guy. What's his name? I think it's Little Nas X.
yeah,
Yeah, and so he's doing some sexual thing with the devil.
yeah.
And then there was another guy at one of these award shows who, some white guy, is like
Is it Sam
oh,
Smith?
Sam Smith. Yeah, this is
Yeah,
the guy. And so he's
yeah,
dancing around with this with Satan and all of this stuff. And so we see that now. And then we had these people that they're supposed to be nuns. They dress up like nuns, but then they're doing sexual things with Jesus. They're men dressing up like nuns,
yeah,
doing
yeah,
in a parade. I mean, this is, this is grossly blasphemous. Um, you know, and just the error that we see people talking about things, people just talking lightly about God and mocking God, and movies that we've seen that were just when I say seen, meaning they've come out just
yeah,
mocking God and all of
yeah,
these things, and it's seen as nothing now.
yeah.
It's nothing. To mock God is nothing.
Yeah, and when we're talking about God, we're talking about a Christian God, because let them do that to Allah, let them do that to the Muslims, and see what happens. You
But
know.
even, sorry to cut you. The difference is when people do that with Islam, they're not scared of Allah. They're scared of
Yeah, yeah,
Muslims.
exactly. But
Not
that's
like
right. That's right.
back
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
day
yeah,
when people spoke about God, they'd be scared of God, not
yeah, yeah.
Christians. People have,
Very true.
it wasn't they were
Very true.
scared of the Christian. They're
Very
scared of
true.
God.
Very true.
Um, you know, and so, but now people have lost no fear. No,
Yeah,
there'd be something like, no, you don't say that.
yeah,
That's gone. In
yeah,
Western culture, that's gone.
yeah. You're right. You're right. Now let's move on quickly. Rejecting restraint. So we're looking at 5: disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, which is unreconcilable. And right, the head of the list is disobedient to parents. And we can get it. We get it because we're seeing this as a real sign of the last days, the breakdown of the family, as you kind of alluded to earlier on. And you can see once the family breaks down, all these things just start to play out as well. What do you say about that?
Yeah, again, I haven't studied it in depth, but something like adolescence,
Mm,
where that age where you're
yeah.
like a teenager and you start to you go back, maybe, I don't know, over 100 years ago, maybe 150 years ago, this didn't exist. It
Mm,
didn't exist. You was a child and then you became an adult. You
mm,
didn't have this thing where you would have your own culture and your own autonomy and independence, and so what we see is there is a whole culture now between
mm,
being a child and being an adult. There is a culture, and that
yeah,
culture runs itself, and
yeah,
that culture produces disobedience, gangs,
yeah,
perversion, all of those things. We did not
mm,
have that in Jesus' day. That didn't happen. You didn't,
yeah,
you've always had bad people, bad
yeah,
children, bad
yeah,
adults,
yeah,
but not a
yeah.
culture. It was
Yes,
like, I
yes,
remember seeing this thing with what are they people? The Greeks, the Spartans.
yeah,
And so I think it's a thing called the agnon. What they would do is you'd become I don't know, he was about 12, and they would get two boys and you'd have to beat each other until you, like, one would submit. It's called an agnon, and it's connected to the word agony. And so what
right,
they would do is that's the rite of passage. You become a man now. Because they
right,
wanted you to be a warrior. They're a warrior
yeah,
nation. They're
yeah,
Spartans. There was
yeah,
no adolescence. Before that, you're
yeah,
with your mum. Okay,
yeah,
now same as
yeah,
before you was with your
yeah,
mum. Now you come and help me on the field.
yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
see this is, we never had this before. This is last days, man.
Yeah, true. We had no real rite of passage, especially for boys, you know. and boys are having to figure things out on their own. Having sex is a rite of passage. Getting drunk the first time they drink, that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and it's all destructive rites of passages, really. And you're thinking about all of these things: unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving. In the Greek, all these words start with the letter alpha, which is, us, our A, and anything A in front of it means the opposite, like asexual. You know what
Mm.
I'm saying? That kind of thing. And so, if you remove all of the A's, obedient to parents, thankful, holy, loving, forgiving, man, these are great virtues, man. You know what I'm saying? But what we're seeing is in these last days, when we disassociate ourselves from Christ, and we degenerate into this kind of stuff, man. And again, this idea of unthankfulness, man. We live in a generation that people are ungrateful. I mean, it always reminds me of Grandma, who said, what did she say? Something to the effect of, "You guys have ruined my future. You've ruined my future." And you think, hang on. Remember what women were like hundreds of years ago? You know what I mean? Number one, in terms of rights, remember the fact that people, you go into these castles and museums, man, and you see these not statues, but like the armor. These people are like 5'2", 5'3". The lack of nutrition. Nowadays people are tall. You know what I'm saying? To be 5'9", I'm 5'8". If you were 5'8" back in them times, man, you're a giant. Now people are like 6'5". Now I'm a small guy. Compared to the nutrition was better. You lived longer. You now live longer lives now than ever before. You have education as a woman. You know what I'm saying? Illiteracy is almost non-existent in the societies that we live in. We have better lifestyles. I mean, the homes that we live in, central heating and all that kind of stuff. Life has never been as good as it is. And yet you're saying, like somehow we lived in a utopia and this generation came and has destroyed everything. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think self-absorbed. We're living in a culture now which has become self-absorbed, and when you're self-absorbed, you're detached from reality, and you cannot appreciate anything. I've seen husbands who cannot appreciate a wife, but she cannot do enough for that guy. And I've seen wives that cannot appreciate a husband because you're self-absorbed. Everything is about you. And then you come to the church, and then it's self-absorbed. We lived in a culture now which is promoting being self-absorbed. But the problem is, the more self-absorbed you become, the more you become detached from reality. There was a woman, I can't remember who she is. She's some actress, and my wife was telling me about it. And so she was like, she made a movie, I think about 5-6 years ago, and she said, "Yeah, well, we were groundbreaking. The first time anyone took a risk having a woman in a lead role." And then
Yeah, yeah,
like people just started to be like, "Are you nuts?" Like, and they started to reel off Alien,
aliens. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sonya, and I don't know, I would Kill Bill or something. I don't know. All these films that had women, and that's what it's like when you're self-absorbed. You're detached from
Yeah, yeah.
reality, and so we're seeing that more and more, where people are saying things, and it's like, no, 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 no. You're self-absorbed. You're unthankful.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much we serve you or what we give you, it would never be enough
Never
because
be enough.
it's the self.
Well, it's the entitlement mentality, isn't it? And this is the most entitled generation I think we've had. It has to be. We're talking about last days issues. There has been we've always had entitled people, the sons of nobles and whatnot, but we've never had a culture of entitled people like today. I mean, the ordinary young person who has this sense of entitlement, like everything is due to them, man. This is we're dealing with a whole, and I'm gonna tell you this. What I see, and I see it from time to time, and I have to make sure. A number of times I go to Greenwich, like if I go for breakfast or lunch, and I see these couples who are in their early 40s with a young child, one child, and you can see that these are a couple that they have resources. They probably they worked hard. They're now in top jobs. Now they can afford to live the life they want. Now they get married, they have one child, and that one child has never had any siblings to share with. And now they you know, you have two parents who are older, and you know, older parents, man, they ain't got the energy for the kids. They let the kids do what they want. You can do, little Johnny, please, you know, no real discipline. These kids have everything, and we're seeing a generation of kids growing up who feel they deserve everything. You know, I was talking to Pastor Al last week, and he was saying how I think there was 12, 13 kids in a house. There was never any seconds, you know. And the, you know, if you had porridge, the luxury was you get to wash the pot, so you can scrape the bottom of the pot out and get that. You know what I'm saying? These kids nowadays ain't got that, and so there's the paradox is you have so much that you don't grateful for stuff, whereas before, when you had little, when you did get something, you were so thankful. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that there is this thing now where you don't see the joy in again. I think it just comes to, I think I'm trying to think how to describe it. I think once all of these things that we're talking about is that you've lost God,
Yes.
and then you've made yourself God.
Yeah.
And once you make yourself God, everything has to be about you.
Yeah.
But the Bible says that two things, I think it says two things are not full. What does it say? Hell and the soul of man, the heart of man, or something, like his appetite.
Yeah.
These things. And so this is an unsatiable, and you can't quench this thing. Only God can quench the soul. Only God can fulfill the life. So we're seeing a culture of people who are self-absorbed, selfish. It's really, everything is about them, and they will be nice. So I guess some people may push back on this and say, look, you know, but there's order right now, there's niceties. There is, because it serves self.
Yeah.
But remember, during COVID, we were fighting over toilet paper. Toilet paper.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that, yes, we are seeing order, but we're also seeing the rise of self-absorbed, selfish people. And all it takes is for something to tip, which it will do, which we know in Revelation. And then we're going to realize what's been bubbling underneath more and more.
Yeah. You're right. You know what? I think we should leave it here for next week because we've gone over the 32-minute mark now. But thanks a lot for this. And, you know, also want to just mention and I'm going to put the link for Pastor Courtney's channel, Real Disciple. I'll send a link in the description below. And so thanks, everyone, for tuning out. Tune in next week, and we'll have part 2 of this. Remember to like and subscribe and to share and to press that notification bell. And I'll see you next time. Big ups.
Peace.